but everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing the
Tampa market. Slowly rise.
Country in Northeast Africa, precisely on the Horn of Africa.
All right, good afternoon, folks. Once again, this is Frank. I am your host. This is the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series. Aspect of WCC. I apologize, we kind of like a few minutes late, and as usual, I usually play some video before we start, but due to some issues, I couldn't do today. However, we are here. So today's topic, it says Africa must unite against all imperialist nation. I know this is hard for some people to digest, but again, I repeat, Africa or African must unite against all imperialist nation and disengage with them. Now, this is hard to digest, I'm telling you. To say Africa should unite against all imperialist nation and disengage with them, right? Now, this is WCC. Today there is no article, but next week probably we might have some article. So what I have to discuss, I didn't really do much research. Like I didn't have all my issues together, so I couldn't really do it. But just to get today going, I decided to bring some video and then just interact on it and try to make my point about why African should disengage with all imperialist nation and why African should unite against all imperialist nation. Now, we are not saying some of these things because we want to say it. We are saying it based on the agenda of the imperialists, based on what they are planning and based on their aim and based on what they have against Africans, what they have planned against Africans. These are the obvious, right? That we are looking out and saying these things, that Africans should disengage with all imperialist nation and should unite against them because they are uniting against us and they are disengaging against us, right? Or with us, right? So I think we can do the same thing as well, right? So let's get into the first video and see. So because I have all videos and the videos are kind of long, we are not going to play the entire video because I might talk in between, but I'm not really going to talk too much today. The video will speak for itself and you yourself can analyze some of the things. You can analyze based on what we say we should disengage with these imperialist nation and to unite against them, right? So let's see the first video here. And by the way, let me say this. This is not a hate, all right, against any nation. This is not a hate against, because we have said this several times here, it's not about the US, right? It's not about UK or Europe or China or Russia, whatsoever the situation may be. It's not about them. It's about us. It's about Africa and it's about African nation. So we don't really care. So what we are discussing here is not opinion. We are discussing it based on what people think about Africans, what people think about Africa, and what people think where we should be. All right. So it's not a discussion against anybody. And by the way, we don't care how people feel. All right. That's just the way it is. We don't care. So we're going to start with a video from the ICC and before we can get to the African continent. Now, For each time WCC come out with a topic, that topic is based on something. So when we say Africa should unite against all imperialist nations, these are some of the reasons, all right? When we say Africa should disengage, right, with the imperialists or with the so-called, colonizer, these are the things, we are talking about. So the topic is not just writing because we feel like, just writing it, all right? So let's look at the first video here about the ICC, all right? Okay.
Put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favour of the draft resolution contained in document S/2024?
Before we go into it, by the way, this just took place this week, all right? This took place this week. So this was a peace resolution that they had at the ICC headquarters, all right? And everyone voted in favor of peace in Palestine or in Gaza. But the war police, as you all know, the war police, as you all know, the war human rights advocate, as you all know, voted against ceasefire in Gaza or Palestine. Now, Britain, so surprising, but again, we will explain that. England voted this time around. England voted for ceasefire in Gaza. England did not ally with the war police or with the war human rights advocate so-called nation, right? England did not ally with this decision to vote against ceasefire in Gaza or Palestine. Why? Because England have seen that if she continue to be on a path, okay, with the war police or with the war human rights advocate nation, she's going to go down, because the same way other nations, other continents are feeling about the war human rights police, that's how too people will feel about England. So this time around, England voted for ceasefire immediately in Gaza or in Palestine. England voted for the right of the Palestinian. Now, England did not vote because, she wanted or she wants ceasefire. The reality here is England voted because she has seen the reaction of the war against her, because at first time, at second time, at third time, right? She did not vote for ceasefire in Gaza. She voted against it. But this is the fourth one. The fourth one before she voted for ceasefire. Why? Because she's saying her nation going down the drain. She's saying if she don't take action, England will soon become a third world country, which of course is already down the line, right? But the war police again voted. This is the fourth veto against ceasefire in Palestine and Gaza. The fourth one from the war police, from the war human rights advocate. Now, Africans, let me just brief you on this. If the war police, if the war human rights advocate can vote for ceasefire in Palestine and Gaza, can vote against or can veto ceasefire in Palestine and Gaza, we all know the war police have been voting for voting against or vetoing African progress. We know. I don't even know there is any time where the war police have voted in favor of African liberation. No. So if the war police can do that, and we all know what the war police have against Africans, right? So you think when you kidding yourself on the African continent, they care? Now, let's go to the so-called African leaders that we have who take the imperialists as their partner, okay? William Ruto, Nana Akufo-Addo, Tinubu, Alassane Ouattara, these people, it goes to you people who take the West as your counterpart, as the people you always run to. All right? And go to you people. Because you, Ouattara, in Africa, your own hometown, your own country, Gbagbo was taken to the Hague, to the RCC, by the same West, by the same US, by the same Europe. Gbagbo, by the same France. Gbagbo was taken to the RCC by the same people just to remove Gbagbo from Africa so that they can put their puppet in. They went and caused the problem, killed innocent citizens, and then they said it was Gbagbo because Gbagbo was the president, just to get him out. And they got him out, and they put their own puppet there while Gbagbo was in a hedge. And then to find out, the RCC found Gbagbo innocent, and Gbagbo came by. But by that time, he's no longer in power. Somebody was already there, put in there by the puppet. And today, that also led to the result of Ouattara being a puppet also put in power by the same West. But these are people who veto peace resolution. But let's get into it, right? To these so-called African leaders. See what they are planning against the RCC. They see RCC, African president goes. They see RCC, they take African leaders. They see RCC, you so-called Negro head P, Negro P will run and take your African leaders there. When the West want your African leaders to go there and they kind of run propaganda, and then you African advocates, so-called educator warning, you will side with the West because you will take Western narrative, Western writings, Western article, and then you take it against your leader, not knowing that leader is fighting for you. And then you fight for that person to be taken to the hedge because America has spoken, England has spoken. But these are the same people. When they see RCC come after them, then they threaten the RCC, they threaten all those family members on the RCC. Watch and see. Africa should disengage with the imperialist. Africa should unite against the imperialist. We are not speaking because of feelings. We are not speaking because of opinion. We are speaking because of the obvious, the reality.
Four 835, please raise their hand. /2024 835, please raise their hand. Those against? The result of the...
So you see, the war police voted against peace resolution in Palestine and Gaza. The war human rights advocate voted against peace. They veto it. They don't want peace in Gaza. They don't want peace in Palestine. They want war. They want chaos. They want for the people to die. They want ethnic cleansing. They want genocide. The war police, the war human rights voted against it. Those are the people the African puppet take as their diplomatic friends. I see why no peace on the African continent. I see the reason why no peace on the African continent. Even though they said Agenda 2023, there was going to be no war. And then Agenda 2063, that's the time that, the development of Africa was going to pass China, was going to pass the US, was going to pass the UK. Agenda 2023. No wonder there is no peace. No wonder there is proxy war on the African continent. Because we take people who believe in war as our partners. People who believe in war, in chaos, in genocide, in murder as our partners. But guess what? Those people we take as our partners, their citizens are living peace. They are living in peace. But your people that you serve, you represent, go to Sudan. African Union can do nothing. Go to Sudan. ECOWAS can do nothing. Go to Togo. DRC Congo. Africans can do nothing. Where is the AU? Nothing. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, terrorists all around. AU can do nothing, but AU is rubbing shoulder with the NATO, with the EU. AU, where are you? ECOWAS, you and AU, where are you guys? Where are you guys? But you rise shoulder with these same people. While all around Africa, no peace. But these are the people you take as your partner. They are the ones voting against peace. They are the ones voting against peace resolution. Let's continue.
The voting is as follows: 14 votes in favor, 1 vote against, 0 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements after the vote. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Madam President, we thank Guyana and other elected members of the Council for the courage they've shown and for their efforts to move today's draft resolution forward. We supported the document and we pay tribute to those responsible members of the Council who, just like us, understand that there's a need to have the speediest and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza as a gauge for general stabilization in the region. And now I would like my colleagues to listen very carefully to the following part of my statement. Once I finish, I'll explain why. It is shocking that the U.S. has vetoed an effort to save the lives of Palestinians and Israelis, though perhaps we shouldn't be surprised about it. For months, the United States has obstructed and obfuscated, standing in the way of the Council action to address the catastrophic situation in Gaza and playing on one side of the conflict to advance its own political objectives at the expense of Palestinian lives. Today, the Council would have come together to call for a comprehensive ceasefire, protection of civilians, and solution to the whole complex of humanitarian problems faced by the Palestinians. The U.S. claims it is in the interest of the regions, but votes against a resolution supported by the majority of regional countries and which would have passed for the benefit of the region. We could have demanded today an immediate, unconditional, and sustainable ceasefire in Gaza, as well as an immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. It is unconscionable that the U.S. would cynically stand in the way of demanding such actions to save lives in the world's worst humanitarian crisis. We do not need to be lectured by the United States on hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is what they exhibit every day in different conflicts, not respecting state sovereignty and shamelessly imposing their own rules and interfering in their internal affairs. As a result, tens of thousands of civilian lives have been lost.
All right, because of time, I'm going to take this video out. But again, we already established that. You saw the vote, right? Who voted against and who voted for. I will end this video because I want a Palestinian representative to speak, all right? So I won't really be doing adjusted if I allow Russia to speak here. It's not about Russia, right? It's about connecting the dot about Palestine and relating to Africa. So it's not really about Russia. I mean, these are powerful nations. They can defend themselves, right? But we are for the people who cannot defend themselves. We are for the people who do not have veto power. We are for the powerless. Those are the people we are for, right? So let's listen to, before we can get to the Palestinian representative, let's see the RCC.
The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes committed during Israel's assault on Gaza. In a statement, the ICC said the Israeli leaders had, quote, intentionally and knowingly deprived the civilian population in Gaza of objects indispensable to their survival, including food, water, and medicine and medical supplies, as well as fuel and electricity. The ICC also issued an arrest warrant for Hamas military commander Mohammad Deif, though Israel's military claims it killed Deif in a July airstrike. The ICC arrest warrants come a week after a UN Special Committee found Israel's actions in Gaza since October 2023 are, quote, consistent with genocide, including using starvation as a weapon of war and recklessly inflicting civilian casualties.
In related news, on Wednesday, the United States vetoed a Gaza ceasefire resolution at the UN Security Council for the fourth time, and the U.S. Senate rejected a resolution brought by Senator Bernie Sanders that sought to block the sale of U.S. tank rounds, bomb kits, and other lethal weapons to Israel. 19 senators supported blocking the arms. For more on all of this, we're joined by Akbar Shahed Ahmed, senior diplomatic correspondent for HuffPost. His latest piece is exclusive. White House says Democrats who oppose weapons to Israel are aiding Hamas. Ahmed, thank you so much for being with us as you write your book on the Biden administration in Gaza called Crossing the Red Line. Clearly, the ICC has ruled that today by issuing arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Can you talk about the significance?
All right, I'll take that out again. So I just wanted you to see that the final ruling of the RCC, right, to arrest Benjamin and the other so-called, advanced or whosoever to him, that was the stand of the RCC, genocide, against Israel, right, of what they are doing in Palestine and Gaza. Now, listen to the reaction of the U.S., right? This I'm going to be specific because they spoke, right? Listen to the reaction of the U.S. The U.S. is threatening the RCC. Listen to what they're about to say. They are threatening the RCC. So funny and serious, man. They say RCC. Now, I'm emphasizing on this, right? Because we have some of these so-called Africans, not even the leaders. We will come to the leaders. But we have some of these so-called Africans who will stand and nod their chests. Yes, this African leader, he was bad. He was this. He went to the H. Yeah, the U.S. talking to the H. ICC talking to the H. So he got to be to the H. He's there, man. He's getting rotten in jail. Especially the former president of Liberia, Charles Taylor. You see Liberian knocking their chests. Chastera is in a hedge for crime committed against humanity, against Liberian, against Sierra Leone, against this. But later they don't know. Chastera is not in a hedge because of crime committed in Sierra Leone. He's not there because of crime committed in Liberia. That's not what Charles Taylor is there for. He's there because he was so adamant to the policy of Washington, D.C. A majority of Liberians, they don't know this. When they read it, he's there, he's in the Hague, he's in the Zage. Charles Taylor is not in the ICC or to the Hague because of what he did. If what he did, it is because of what he's in the Hague, the people who supported him, who gave him ammunition, are supposed to be there. Because if you are happy for Charles Taylor committing crime in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, which of course we want his service time, right? Yeah. But if you are happy that the same US took him there, why aren't you happy if they say they want for Israel to go to the same place Charles Taylor is? Oh, you took Charles Taylor, US took Charles Taylor to court. They sponsor it, everything, right? They said it was Sierra Leone, but they sponsor all of those things. So why are they against? Why are they not sponsoring the ICC against Israel if they stand for humanity? You see the double standard. Liberian, no this. Charles Taylor is not in the Hague because of crime committed in Liberia or even in Sierra Leone. We have spoken on that seriously. He's there because he wanted to expose the people to whom supported him, where the ammunition came from overseas to kill Liberians and to destroy Liberia. He wanted to expose them. That's why he said he wanted to put it in his book. Because it will be next generation of Liberian will come and see it. That this is what the so-called partners to Liberia have done to Liberia. He wanted to expose them so Liberian people can know the true story. He did not agree with the policy, especially when he disagreed with the policy of Firestone, when he wanted to take the rubber plantation from the colonialists, from Harvey Firestone children or grandchildren for the Firestone. They are here. He wanted to take it from them. They came after him for that. They came after him because of their resources. Not because you think they care about what he did when they supported it, when they brought ammunition, and then they used Allen White when Allen White were working for them in the Department of Justice in Africa there, carrying ammunition, and then you sit down, you defend Allen White today. When I see Liberian defending Allen White, it hurt me because they don't know the story about Allen White. And that was the same thing. Liberian defended Allen White to say Allen White was a lawyer. They don't even know the history of Allen White. They did not even do research, but because they said Allen White came on, he have a law firm, he have an office, but we the one that came out and dug the story behind Allen White to find out Allen White was never a lawyer, but Liberian defended it ignorantly. Oh, Allen White is a lawyer, he's a this. We knock our chest and came on social media and say Allen White is a damn liar, he's not a lawyer. When we check, Allen White did not go to any law school in the US. And that's how we went on social media. We say we don't care whether he went for the Department of Justice. But we knew what we were saying. And we said, let him bring evidence. We knocked our chest because we never feared. We knew our research did not lie to us. Come to find out when we said we need where you went to school in the US, gave out the name of the school. Because there is no law school Allen White went to in America here. And when he was working for the Department of Justice, there is no office he had that his offices were in Africa. We have checked it, there was no error. Because if he said he worked with the Department of Justice and you do research, you should find video about him, about the US here. But we did not find one video of Allen White. Again, we challenge him in there. Before finally Allen White came out to say, oh, he's not a lawyer, because he knew what was coming after him. He came out to say, I was not a lawyer, I was not a this. And we said, even a law firm, Liberian, were on Facebook defending this man because they wanted to remove President Josh Manuel Weah from power. defended criminal Allen White. But we stood up. And Allen White came out to say, I am not a lawyer. You see that? Be careful with the West when you're reading their script. Be careful with Westerners when they are speaking for you. Find out why are they speaking for you. Because they do not like you more than themselves. So let's see what they are planning against the RCC. And even not the RCC alone. Ready, people who sat on the RCC to charge Israel, their family, they are going after them. They will go after the office of the RCC. They see what they are planning. And not only that, their counterparts, the other European nation that voted for peace in Gaza, they are going after them. Imagine that. Imagine that. Now you got these so-called dumb-headed, mud-headed brain African leaders on the African continent. And they will talk about you get partner. The men that colonize you is your partner. The men that enslave you is your partner. The man that systematically your democratic leader is your partner. The man that does not want you free is your partner. The man that don't want you to own your land, your mineral, your resources is your partner. Look at what your partner are discussing against their own people. Look at this. If they can do that to their own people, you think they will have time for a slave? You already, they take you as slave. They will have time for you? Watch this video.
International Criminal Court at The Hague has officially applied for arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's former defense minister Yoav Gallant, charging them with war crimes and crimes against humanity. This is absolutely a historic decision that has caused a political explosion in the West. In fact, it has divided the Western alliance. The United States and a small handful of allies are attacking the International Criminal Court known as the ICC, and the US government is threatening sanctions on ICC officials. However, many Western governments are actually speaking out in support of the ICC, including the governments of the UK, Canada, Australia, and several European states. So the West is dividing over Israel. And meanwhile, some top US senators are threatening to invade The Hague in the Netherlands to attack the International Criminal Court. And other US senators are threatening sanctions not only on the...
No, sorry, folks. The video is long, but I promise you, we're going to end this video. But let me say something. You heard what he said. The US, they are planning to invade The Hague. Is this strange? Is this strange? Wasn't the same thing I was trying to do with Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso? When they wanted to invade Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso through ECOWAS, through AU, is this strange? Did you see that? You see that? These are African nations fighting for their freedom. Because, by the way, those leaders are not military leaders. We don't call them military. We don't call them junta. They are freedom fighters. They are revolutionary. We don't call them junta. Because we are still fighting for freedom. They are not junta. That's the narrative of the West, of Washington, D.C., of EU. But that is not our narrative. Because our struggle is not their struggle. So we don't call them junta. Those are revolutionary. Those are freedom fighters. Fighting for our freedom. But did you see? The CH, they've been taking African leaders to. They never invaded. They never planned to invade the hedge. They never plan to invade the ICC. You see why Africans should cut away from, should disengage from all these colonial imperialist nations. Did you see why Africans need to unite against these imperialists? Did you see? So today, ICC is a criminal. Today, ICC is a terrorist organization that they want to go invade, that they want to go destroy. ICC today, in the eyes of the world police, ICC is a war terrorist organization. You see?
ICC, but also on Western allies. They're threatening sanctions on the UK, on Canada, on European.
Yeah. Now, the war police is threatening UK for sanction, Canada, because this nation voted for ceasefire. Before then, they banned some, like the recent one before this, Britain abstained. She did not vote, right? And she did not veto. She was silent. But this time around, EU is going down the drain. Okay? Because of people feeling towards her. So she voted for peace. But now the war police is angry, saying that you betray us. So they are now planning to go after Canada. They are now planning to go after UK to sanction them. Is that strange? That's the weapon of the colonizer. Is that strange when it comes to sanction on the African nations, on the African continent? When African leaders are saying, no, US, we are human beings too. You can't just come and take everything from us. No, US, your policy, your foreign policy will destroy our economy, will destroy our nation, will destroy our youth. Oh, I want to talk your foreign policy about lesbian and these nasty attitudes of the US. When African nations say no, what did they do? Oh, they threaten African nation with sanctions, but they don't take that thing, that nastiness, to the Middle East. They don't take it there to Dubai, but they do business with those people. They don't take it there. That is what I mean when you continue to be puppet. So they threaten you. Now you see it. They are against nations now who are saying, oh no, US. You can say, if we follow you, we're going to fall, as we are already falling. We don't have the resources to maintain our population, to maintain our empire. I mean, even if we lose our empire, but we should be able to collaborate with the other rest of the world so that we can still mix with them to get some of the resources to maintain our population, to maintain our destiny, to maintain our nation. So US, we don't want to be part of this hegemony or this empire. We don't want to be part of it. So I think we will go this route. And then US said, no, we will sanction you. We will come after you. You see what is going on? So what would they do to little Africa? Little African nations. No wonder why you see these African leaders continue to be puppets. No wonder. No wonder.
Countries.
So to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
So this decision is having huge political repercussions, which I'll be discussing today. But first, I want to talk about what exactly Israel has been doing in Gaza. The United Nations created a special committee in order to investigate, and they concluded this November that Israel has been committing the G crime, the worst crime a state can commit. The UN Special Committee said, quote, Israel's warfare in Gaza is consistent with the characteristics of genocide, with mass civilian casualties and life-threatening conditions intentionally imposed on Palestinians there, end quote. They added, quote, "Since the beginning of the war, Israeli officials have publicly supported policies that strip Palestinians of the very necessities required to sustain life, food, water, and fuel," end quote. They said that Israel has been carrying out systematic and unlawful interference with humanitarian aid, blocking aid from going in. And they added that, quote, "Through its siege over Gaza, obstruction of humanitarian aid, alongside targeted attacks and killings of civilians and aid workers, Israel is intentionally causing death, starvation, and serious injury, using starvation as a method of war and inflicting collective punishment on the Palestinian population," end quote. Those are the words of the United Nations published on the official website of the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And even the top human rights organization inside Israel itself, which is called B'Tselem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories, they have said very clearly that the Israeli regime is trying to ethnically cleanse the northern part of Gaza, expelling the indigenous Palestinians and colonizing their land so they can never go back. This was also...
Is this strange again? That's what they did in North America. They came, they looted the place, carried on genocide, killed the people, the few that lived, they drove them away. What happened to Israel? By the way, people who think Israel, the people that live there are the real Jew, today, you're going to see one of them saying, it was what they did in Israel. The people that lived there, when they went there, they drove the people out, 1948, and they settled there. So when I heard that from one of them, I was like, what? So now a proof again to the so-called Christian, to the so-called Christian, to the so-called black men who don't know his or her history. He said, when they went to Israel, the current Israel now, the people they met there, they destroyed the people, killed the people, and settled on the land. They are not the original owner of the land. So the people that were on our land were taken from there, were killed. Mass genocide. Is that strange? Then we see that in South Africa, apartheid. Who supported it again? We know the war police or the war human rights nation. So everywhere they went. So what is happening in Palestine and Gaza? What do you think it's for? They want to have a place in the Middle East, not just Israel. And that same thing is happening in South Africa currently as we speak. Africans. Let's continue. We must unite. We must unite against the imperialists. We must disengage from all imperialist nations. It is a must. I am not saying we should. Must.
Also, the conclusion of the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. He said that Israel is trying to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and he called for the world to act to stop it. And this is why the decision by the ICC to apply for an arrest warrant for top Israeli officials is so important and so historic, because the ICC has a long history of extreme bias. In fact, until 2016, as the Los Angeles Times newspaper noted, the ICC had basically only charged Africans, former African leaders, for the worst crimes at the court. So this is why many people in Africa and the global south saw the ICC basically as a tool of the Western colonial powers and condemned it as the international colonial court. So this is why it was a matter of reputation. If the ICC didn't take action while Israel was carrying out blatant crimes against humanity and the crime of genocide, if they didn't do something to try to stop it, then the ICC would have been permanently discredited. By the way, I should point out another criticism of the ICC is that it waited 6 months to officially issue these arrest warrants. Back in May, the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan officially applied for the arrest warrants, accusing Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant of war crimes and crimes against humanity. And yet that process was delayed for half a year as Israel continued carrying out these crimes with billions of dollars of weapons from the United States and from some European countries. Throughout this time, the US government continued flooding Israel with military aid, including $18 billion of weapons and ammunition and other military support in just 1 year. Throughout that time, the US government was very heavily pressuring the ICC not to issue the arrest warrant. There were reports that the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan was being threatened and blackmailed. And it's very clear why, because US officials know that if Israeli officials are actually held to justice for their crimes, US officials could be next. In fact, back in May, when the ICC originally...
So that is another reason the US is vetoing the peace resolution in Gaza. And you're going to see that in this video where they are expressing the concern that, hey, if ICC do this to Israel, if we sit here and ICC charge Israel and take Israel to the Hague, they will come after us. I mean, in this, listen to them. You're going to see it when we reach that part. So that's the reason why they are fighting against the ICC. They're listening if they succeed. Because Africans are now standing out. And the fact of the matter here is other superpower, other nations who have the veto power, they all are on the side of Africa as we speak right now. They all are on the side of Africa. Why? Because they themselves have their special interests with Africans when it comes to African resources. So Africans, holistically, Africans have these people in their pocket. So if we allow this to happen, we will be next. If Africans say we want reparation. Let me say this. You know, let me come this. There's a revolutionary era. We don't care. To our African brothers and sisters in the diaspora, especially those that call themselves the FBA. Let me say this. If you want reparation, and you are saying, oh, we don't want to be part of Africa. We are not Africans. We are not this. You will not get it. You will fight. Your children can fight. Your next children can fight. Your next children can fight. Children can fight. You will never get it. Do you see how you're going to get reparation? The answers are there. Look, we don't even have to tell US or Europe to pay our reparation. The only thing we need to do is unite. It's very clear. The rest of the world, I actually on African side because they want something. China wants something from Africa. Russia wants something from Africa. Why you think the UK? Why you think UK voted for peace? Because UK already know that she can never fall apart with Africa. And she fall apart with Africa. If Africa fall apart, go against her, she's done. Like already what's happening? They are already experiencing mass poverty. Okay? Mass poverty. Lot of deficit in their sectors. It is happening. Look at France. Just Niger, Mali, just 3 nations in Africa. Just 3 nations in Africa, Europe is shaking. Imagine just 3 nations that just went away. Europe is shaking. Look at France. Look at they are shaking. Look at Germany. They all are shaking. Just because they are not getting uranium, they're not getting current. They are shaking. Falling. These people know. But they will never tell you your importance. They will never tell you that they are parasites on you. They will not tell you that. How you going to tell the thing you feel on? his or her importance to them, they will not do it. So you say that we are FBA, we are not Africans, we fighting for reparation on our own. You will never get it. The only way you're going to get it, unite with your other brothers and sisters. Forget about, hey, we are not this. Leave that thing behind there. Because the answers is right here. The answer are right here with us. But you are looking somewhere far. Right now, everyone depends on Africa to survive. Any nation at this time, right now, I can tell you, at this critical point, any nation, you disengage with Africa, you done. Just 3 nations, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. Look at Europe. Look at Europe. It's gone. And right now, but let's continue here. Let's continue. Maybe it may feel that I'm just talking, right? See what is going on. See the solution. We have the solution already. We have it. But what are we waiting for? What are we looking for? If we think we're going to ask US to give a reparation, they're not going to do it. If we think we're going to ask Europe to give a reparation, we're not going to do it. But it's very simple. They themselves will give a reparation. They were coming back off to say, listen, we beg you, we apologize, we did this, but this is what we have, to pay for our crop. I can tell you they will do it. Without you going to them, if we take this step, without you going to them, they will come to you. US will come to you, black Negro P, and tell you, listen, we know what we did against you people. We can't pay for it. We can't pay for it. But this is what we have, to apologize for our crime. They have never apologized, but they will come and apologize to you. I'm telling you, they will do it. But you know the reason why they still keep saying, African people need to appreciate the European or the West. We civilized here, we gave you the. It's because of the nonsense we still continue to do around here, going to them, backing them. Let's continue here.
Applied for these arrest warrants, numerous U.S. government officials said exactly that. They said if they prosecute Israel, we're next, because the U.S. has carried out many war crimes and crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan around the world, and the U.S. is complicit in Israel's crimes because it has been funding Israel's crimes and giving it weapons and ammunition and support as it carried out these very well-documented.
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside and get the bearskin
crimes.
So we, hopefully, together will find a way to register our displeasure with the ICC, because if they'll do this to Israel, we're next. They try.
You heard that? So basically, the U.S. is not fighting for humanity. The U.S. is not fighting for human rights. You heard that. If they do this to Asia, we are next. Look, Africans, look. We have the solution in our hands. We have this. Look, you don't have to go to the U.S. asking for reparation. We don't have to go to Europe asking. Look, we are wasting our time even going to them asking for reparation. I can tell you, Africa, we are blessed. With our resources, these people can survive. Look, at this point, the entire world depends on Africa. Even the BRICS is all about Africans. Which I'm not against in the fight, but I'm not against the BRICS, because we are seeing the transformation that is going on within the BRICS. But my point here is, everyone depends on Africa to survive. So if you want for Europe or the US to pay for their crime, to pay you reparation, unity is all we need. Start forming different groups. We are this, we will be separate and we will fight. You will never get reparation. But do you see what he said? If we allow them to do this to Asia, we are next. You know what? Now African people now will come and say, okay, for example, South Africa, they will say genocide committed, the US supported Israel. Do you know what they're going to happen now? Slavery. Everything will come to light. You know what will happen? Colonization. It will come to light. They will pay. You heard what he said? They will come for us. Let's continue. The more we continue to bring division among ourselves, the more we lose. The more we continue to form group, no, I'm not this person, I'm this person, I'm not Palaview, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not, no. We will lose. You will never win. But you see, they are done for. They know. They know. And you see what they are fighting for. You think it's about the Palestinian? Or you think it's about you African when they killing you, when they're supporting proxy war? You think it's about you? While they sit down there in African stream that bring African stories, that bring the narrative, they dissolve them, and they call them terrorists, they call them extremists. Why did they do that? You think they care about you? They don't care. You heard them saying it here.
ICC, because if they'll do this to Israel, we're next. They tried to come after our soldiers in Afghanistan, but reason prevailed. So at the end of the day here,
you heard that? They tried to come after our soldier in Afghanistan. So they themselves know what they did in Afghanistan was illegal, was invasion. They invaded the place. You heard it, right? They know. They know the crime they have committed around here. They know the proxy war they have committed around here. They know what they did in Libya was against humanity. They know it. They followed the Arab Spring and they took their army. They flew there, killed a president, destroy a nation. They know it. You heard it. They will come after us. And you heard it. They tried to come after our soldier while we did in Afghanistan. You heard it. And these are the people our African leader then call partners. These are the people Nana Akufo-Addo call partners. Warren Ruto call partners. Ouattara call partners. Salah call partners. These are the people who are the African partners. But at the same time, these are the people when they're ready to take African leader to the hedge. These are the same people when they're ready, they call African leader insignificant, shithole. These are the same people when they're ready to call African leader. They are not fit to lead, to be leader. They can't even rule their own people. They can't even lead their own people. They can't even safeguard their own people. There is no safety for them in their own people. These are the same people. At the end, you call them partners. But you see, their agenda is different from your agenda. You see, what they protect is not about humanity.
here, what I hope to happen is that we level sanctions against the ICC for this outrage to not only help our friends in Israel, but protect ourselves over time.
So what was the response of the U.S. government that claims to defend the so-called rules-based international order? Well, U.S. President Biden referred to the ICC decision as outrageous, and he attacked The Hague. Now, ironically, the ICC applied for arrest warrants not only against Netanyahu and Gallant, but also against Palestinians. So it did this kind of both sides narrative. But the U.S. was furious, and now Washington is preparing to impose sanctions on the ICC in alliance with Israel. And the U.S. government said that it, quote, fundamentally rejects, end quote, the ICC arrest warrants. This is the reality of the so-called rules-based order that U.S. officials constantly bloviate about. And they criticize adversaries like China and Russia, accusing them of violating the so-called rules-based order, in which the United States makes the rules and orders everyone else around. But when there are legal consequences for the US and its allies, suddenly they threaten the ICC. They threaten sanctions on the ICC. And some US officials want to use the military to attack the ICC, to invade The Hague, because they know that if there are consequences, if there is justice for Israeli officials over their crimes against humanity, there may be consequences and justice for US officials over their own crimes against humanity. The Republican Senator Tom Cotton threatened that the US would invade The Hague over this decision.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And
Senator Tom Cotton was referencing a US law passed in 2002 known popularly as the Hague Invasion Act. The official name is the American Service Members Protection Act. And as Human Rights Watch noted back 2 decades ago, this law authorizes the use of military force to liberate any American or citizen of a U.S. allied country being held by the International Criminal Court, which is located in The Hague. So this is how the U.S. actually sees international law. It's willing to invade The Hague in the Netherlands, which is part of the European Union. This is a major U.S. ally, and yet the U.S. is threatening to invade them to prevent The Hague from prosecuting an Israeli official or a U.S. official. So there is no accountability for their crimes against humanity. These are the actions of a rogue state. The United States and Israel are rogue regimes. And of course, this is completely bipartisan in Washington. President Biden has been openly attacking the ICC, but also President-elect Donald Trump has been attacking the ICC as well. And Donald Trump's neoconservative national security advisor, Mike Waltz, who's a war hawk, Mike Waltz has been threatening to impose sanctions on the ICC and personally on the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, who's a British attorney. And Donald Trump's neoconservative national security advisor, Mike Waltz, claimed that the ICC has so-called anti-Semitic bias, which is absurd. Now, these are not just empty threats. I think it's very likely that Trump will impose sanctions on the ICC when he returns to the White House, because in 2020, in his first term, the Trump administration did impose sanctions on the ICC. In that case, the Trump administration was furious because The Hague had opened an investigation into war crimes committed in Afghanistan by U.S. NATO forces. So they put sanctions not only on ICC officials, but also on their family members. U.S. officials were threatening the family members of ICC personnel. This is how criminal the U.S. government is. It's a rogue regime. And the irony is that when the Biden administration came to power in 2021, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken boasted that he lifted the sanctions and visa restrictions that were imposed on ICC personnel. And the Biden-Harris administration said, look, we are supporting international law and we are not attacking the ICC anymore. But here we are 3 years later, and the Biden-Harris administration is once again attacking the ICC, just like Trump did. This is completely bipartisan. But given that Donald Trump will officially be inaugurated president again in January, I think it's very likely that he will impose sanctions once again on the ICC, especially because back in June, the U.S. House of Representatives, the lower chamber of the Congress, passed legislation that called to sanction the ICC. This law was overwhelmingly supported by Donald Trump's party, the Republicans. Almost all Republicans in the House, except for 2, voted in support of this law. And also 42 Democrats joined the Republicans in supporting this law to impose sanctions on the ICC. So once again, this is bipartisan criminality in the U.S. government. Politicians in Washington attacking The Hague. That's how extreme these U.S. politicians are. But what's interesting is that the U.S. government is so extreme and so fanatical that it's actually alienating some of its own allies in the West. For instance, Australia's government has come out against the U.S. and said that Australia will respect the decisions of the ICC. Even Canada the northern neighbor of the US, which is so subservient to Washington, it's often jokingly referred to as the 51st US state. But even Canada's government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that it will respect the decisions of the ICC. It will abide by the arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. The UK has said the same thing. The British government said it will comply with the arrest warrant for Netanyahu. So here you can see that the almighty Anglo-American alliance is breaking apart on this specific issue, on Israel. The US can no longer even pressure its closest allies, Canada, Australia, and the UK, to go along with it in attacking the International Criminal Court, because they can see how crazy and how extreme and fanatical that is, and how much damage it would do to them politically on the international stage. They can't talk about supporting democracy and human rights and the rules-based order when they're openly attacking the International Criminal Court. I mean, even these hypocritical governments, which are deeply hypocritical and imperialist in their own right, even they have a line that they can no longer cross. So what is the response of some US government officials? Well, the influential Republican Senator Lindsey Graham openly called for suffocating the economies of US allies like the UK and Canada.
Again, is that strange? That's what they do to the African nations, right? Nation they call terror war. Okay? And exactly. Like Nkrumah said, like what he's saying down there. So, look, whether Republican or Democrat win, right? Nkrumah is true. Like Malcolm X told us, whether liberal or conservative, they are all the same. They all go with the same agenda, right? But they just have different way of manipulating the black people or the black votes, right? Malcolm X told us that's why we need to keep listening to, our greater, revolutionary that live after us, right? But you're right, Nkrumah. Trump is not going to be different. Trump is going to do exactly what the liberal, was doing. And that's what the conservative are going to do, right? But again, there's the same thing they do to Africa or to the African continent or to African nation or nation they call terror war, right? Once they go there with their foreign policy and you say, no, your foreign policy is going to harm our nation, is not in any way going to benefit us, they put sanction on you. So now you see what's happening. They don't care about the reason why those nations voted for peace. They don't care about the safety of those nations. They don't care. African leaders or African nations or African advocates, some of you who don't understand the system, some of you who don't understand what imperialist is, of what neocolonialist is, right? Some of you who don't understand what capitalist nations, they are in their agenda. This goes to you people. Now you see, it is not about you. It is not about your interest. It is not about your country. It is not about your people. It is not about your well-being. When they come, they say, hey, we are coming, we care for you people. They don't care. Look at what is happening. These are European nations. These are, or how they call it, North American or a nation. Look at Canada. And they are saying they will put sanction on these people. These are their own counterparts. And they don't care about, if they don't care to listen to why those people are voting for peace. Because those people are voting for ceasefire because they are seeing that they don't have much to survive. They survive on other people. And the stage of the world right now, they have realized that it is not just about war. Because nations are uniting now. And let me say this, even before we continue. Let me say this. I always say that before. Let me not jump ahead of time. Let's continue here. All right? But no matter what we do, there is going to be war. I don't know why you're going to call it World War III. But there is going to be war. We are not going to escape that. Here we have said it several times. You know why we say it? That is not prediction. It is not prediction. That is not prediction to say, no, it's not prediction. It's something that's going to happen. Because these folks are not going to give up. You think they're just going to allow their empire, even though the empire is going to fail. But you think they're just going to allow it fail? They're not going to fight? They're not going to put resistance? It's not going to happen. Even greater empire that have failed, they didn't just fall like that. They fought. Even before failing, they tried. So that's how they're going to try. And by the way, no empire exists forever. Name me one empire that ever existed. No empire come for a certain century. They do what they're supposed to do. They rule the war and they fail. And another empire rise up. That's just how it is. That's the nature of human. That's just how it been. And that's how it's going to be. So it is their time to fall. But they are not going to just give up to say, hey, you know, we have led the war, we have done this, and, you know, we did, you know, you think they're just going to allow it fall? Of course it's going to fall. But they're not just going to allow it to just happen. So there is going to be war. There is going to be talking about something somewhere. It is going to be. As for that, I will tell you, it is going to be.
And Australia and some European countries. He said the US should impose sanctions on their closest allies and suffocate their economies in order to attack the ICC and protect the Israeli colonial regime. Listen to this insane clip of the Republican senator and Donald Trump ally, Lindsey Graham.
So to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
Well, that means I want every ally. And you saw little Justin in Canada and his position. What should the penalty be?
We should crush your economy because we're next.
Think about how crazy.
You heard what he said? Again, just like the first guy that spoke after him. You heard what he said? We are next. We are next. Do you think these people, next thing, you know, we will come to this video. Let me get to Nana Akufo-Addo. We will come to this video. Hold on. We're going to come to this video, okay? We're going to come to this video. Let me show something here. Let me show something. Let me show something here.
So, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. Today, Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana. We really like to have a privileged opportunity to talk about its implications, to what extent we can have you as a partner.
We have to talk about this and its implication because we have you as our partner. Now, from the first guy that spoke, or the guy that just spoke before putting the video on, right? Their partner Canada, their partner or UK, they are saying they will sanction UK, they will sanction or Canada. Then you, Ghana, sorry to say this, not like I'm looking down on Ghana, but the reality here is, right, this is how these people look at you, like something like this. This is how they look at you. You see it? This is how these imperialists look at you, like this. You see this paper? That's how they look at you, and that's how they look at you. So you call these people partner? You call a U.S. partner? How can you call a U.S. partner when you live in the pocket of the U.S.? Because the U.S. pocket is the IMF, U.S. pocket is the World Bank. You Nana Akufo-Addo, live in the pocket of the World Bank, live in the pocket of IMF, and then you call them partner? These people fear you. They fear you. You are a slave. How can a slave be a partner to the slave master? Oh, we understand. Because in the 1800s, that was what Adam Smith said. Take the slave as your partner. Take the slave and you can sit down on the same table and discuss and drink from the same cup and eat from the same pan, even share the same spoon, even go to the same medical hospital. They will think they are free, but they will be productive as the way you want it to be. So you call them partner. How can your slave master be a partner? How can the man who enslave you, colonize you, continue to exploit you, continue to kill all your African leaders who want peace and freedom for their people? How you call such a man partner? Partner, when a man ready, he go in plane and went and kill one of your own African leaders while you sat down there, Nana Akufo-Addo, and this man went and killed one of your own. You call this man partner? You think African leaders have partner? African, you have no partner when it comes to overseas war. You have no partners. Your African brothers and sisters are your partners. Your African nations are your partners. And your African continent is only your partner. Were they your partner when they colonize you? Were they your partner when they enslave you? Were they your partner when they put a sanction on you? Were they your partner when you disagree with the selfish foreign policies that will affect you? Were they your partners? These are the people on the African continent that are giving problem to us.
In confronting these threats. And therefore, it's important that we bring that matter to your notice and see to what extent we can engage you as a reliable partner in the pushback of those forces.
Guys, this is President Nana Addo from Ghana, the president of Ghana, reporting Burkina Faso and Russia to America. Let me put it this way. We all know Russia is with Burkina Faso. Apparently, Ghana is with America. Now, Ghana is reporting Burkina Faso to America. This is what disunity looks like. If the AU was functioning, these are the kind of issues we can resolve in AU. These are the kind of things AU needs to look into. But no, we keep taking our issues to our colonizers and we expect them to stop meddling in our issues. We keep telling them that we cannot govern ourselves. We keep telling them that we are not together and we expect them to stop meddling in our issue. I understand that the president of Ghana
all right, that is Nana Akufo-Addo, right? So look at Canada. Canada is powerful, right? They have their military, they have their army, they have their economy, right? But the United States is saying they will sanction Canada. Look at UK. UK have an army, her military, I mean everything, right? But US is saying they will sanction those people just because they voted for peace. Just because Canada said, no, we have to look after our own interests. But no, African leaders, Nana Akufo-Addo, you don't know your own interest. Oh, UK said, no, US, we got to look after our own interests. We got to look after our people. Nana Akufo-Addo, where is your pride? Nana, you get the African name, not even European name. You get an Akufo-Addo, not even European name. Where is your pride? But look here. After everything he has done, because he's about to leave power, Nana Akufo-Addo's son, not even no, I mean his father, Nana Akufo-Addo, white father, Nana Akufo-Addo, European father, Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron is Nana Akufo-Addo's father. Instead of Emmanuel Macron being the son to Nana Akufo-Addo. Nana Akufo-Addo is rather the father, or let's say the son, to Emmanuel Macron. Nana Akufo-Addo is supposed to be the father to Emmanuel Macron. Nana Akufo-Addo is supposed to be the godfather to Emmanuel Macron. Nana Akufo-Addo is supposed to dictate to Emmanuel Macron. But Emmanuel Macron is rather the father to Nana Akufo-Addo. Emmanuel Macron is rather the master to Nana Akufo-Addo. So they had to call Nana Akufo-Addo for reward. They had to call Nana Akufo-Addo for dinner. They had to call Nana Akufo-Addo the slave to serve with the slave master in Spain, or let's say in Paris, for dinner, for a war, for being a good servant. Nana Akufo-Addo the servant. Nana Akufo-Addo for being a good servant.
Guess what? For a medal. A medal for what? This is exactly the questions that Ghanaians are asking. That since this man came to office, he had not done anything tangible for the people. And recently, he just erected a statue for himself in the city. He erected his own statue while he's alive and acting as a president. What is wrong with our leaders?
This is why your blood sugar spikes and feet burns. Did you know type 2 diabetes is a completely reversible condition?
I'm Abigail Kunedu. I'm from Takrady. That's where I reside. I saw this statue that was yesterday and I was amazed because I'm thinking about the various projects that the government has promised us to do. I was coming from the market circle and moved to the new market. He promised us not more than 2 years it will be done. It's not done. Nothing in Takrady has really been done and completed. But I don't know why you could get time to fix a statue of yourself. I think with statues, they are supposed to be honored. And so someone would come and say, you've done a lot, so they'll honor you with it. But I don't know why, once you are in government, you could fix a statue on a whole runabout and you think it's fine. Once there are other projects you've not done, even this place is not completed. So how can you put a statue there? It's not a finished area. And so with Takrady, we are so shocked and amazed as to you putting a statue here once you know there are other projects that you're supposed to do that you haven't done. We are really disappointed at this very statue. I'm surprised because you are not even thinking about the completion of the whole area. We were using 2 lanes in and out. Now they blocked one and we are using one for both in and out. And you're not even thinking about that one. And what you think is to get money to do your own statue and come and put here. I'm really amazed and surprised.
And this is a sign. This is another asset. This is another asset because it hasn't gone to the level where they'll come out boldly and tell you that he is their asset. This is it. So when we say that presidents of the country in the continent are assets to the European bodies and the American bodies, this is it. This is one of them. So Macron called you and said, come on, come for a medal. And this old man agreed to go to collect a medal from Macron. This is a situation we are in the motherland, that our leaders do not prioritize important things. Our leaders don't know the difference between what is important and what is not important anymore. Our leaders do not care spending money on things that are not for the benefit of the nation. Now, this medal he went to collect is for himself. Is it for the nation? It's not, obviously. You saw where he was snitching on Ibrahim Traore with the Secretary of State of the United States. So he had successfully played their puppet. He has successfully played being an agent to France and America. And it is time for them maybe to like pat his head and tell him, thank you for being with us all this while. Thank you for supporting us all this while. And they called him for a medal. And he gladly went with his family for a medal. Let's listen to Ghanaians speak, and then we take it off from there, Your Majesties.
So the president of a whole sovereign state, the president of Ghana, took plane with his daughter, his wife, and 4 ministers, and flew all the way to France just to be given a medal, just for an honor to be embedded on him. So they gave him something because he's grand officier. I'm not interested in that, but they gave him something in France. So after this man built a statue in his own honor, he's not satisfied. He now went to France just to be recognized. Sorry, is this not some kind of neocolonialism? It's like somebody who worked for his master, and at the end of what he did, his master said, okay, oh, you did well, you just come and take this thing. That's how I'm seeing it, because I've never seen, like, Rollins and the rest, whoever invited them to France to come for medal. No, they never did. Like, I'm even speechless. You change the date of 1st July to your father's birthday. It's not enough for you. You built a statue in your own honor. It's not enough for you. You now have to be recognized by a white man. What is this? What is it with these African leaders wanting to be recognized by? Look, in terms of everything, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of economy, Ghana have regressed. We have regressed so much in terms of development that we now celebrate 2 kilometers of road. We now celebrate common interchanges. It's like you guys don't get it. We were the first African country to gain independence in the sub-Saharan region. Do you know how monumental that is? And our president is going to France just to be given. A Spanish politician called Scott Shevik said something in wake of Akufo-Addo going to France. This is what he said. Let me read it for you. This is what he said. All black men want is to be recognized by his slave masters. That is what he tweeted when he saw that Akufo-Addo went to France for a medal.
All right, folks, let me read the entire stuff on there, and then I will take it out, right? So there's what he said. All the black men want is to be recognized by his slave masters. He enslaved his own for minor and is now exporting resources. He enslaved his own for minor and is now exporting resources. Yes, he subjugated his own for little pocket change, for little award from the white man, from his slave master. He beat down his own people when they asked for good governance. He looked down on his own people. His own nation is like a graveyard. But he had the resources, but take the resources to his slave master. Yes, he enslaved his own for minor or for mirror and is now exporting resources. He begged for aid. Yes, he begged for aid. Exploit and save abroad. He exploited his own people and saved it abroad. Sacrificing local progress. He sacrificed, or they sacrifice local progress so he can be conserved. He sacrificed the freedom of their people so that he can be recognized by the white man. He sacrificed the freedom, the good livelihood for his or her people so that he can wine and dine with the white man, their God. That is why the Spanish politician wrote. He went as far as saying, dare to be different. Dare to be different. And in there he wrote Nkrumah in his ancestral stage, a coup. So basically, he was even congratulating Nkrumah. This means he was telling Nana Akufo-Addo, your forefather left your blueprint. The nation you serve as a president, the man who led that nation to independence left you a blueprint. The same people you call partner So these are the people that wanted to kill him. 5 times or more than 5 assassination attempts. This is what a Spanish politician telling Nana Akufo-Addo. How can these people be our partners? Aren't you reading the blueprint of Nkrumah? Aren't you reading Neocolonialism? The last stage. Aren't you reading it? This is what the Spanish politician telling Nana Akufo-Addo. How can this nation, these people be a partner when they wanted Nkrumah dead? The man who led the country to independence that today you serve and you enjoy. Oh man. How come we don't know our own story? And then this is what Nana Akufo-Addo said. Nana Akufo-Addo is so happy that his slave master rewarded him. He said, earlier today, during an official visit to France, I was conferred with the title, the white man title, but look at your people. I was conferred with the title. He saw African leaders are so happy about title from the white man. I was conferred with the title of Grand Officer de la Legion. He went for title. So the title you received, Nana Akufo-Addo, was it a title for the Ghanaian? Was it a title for Africa? Because the nation you serve, the nation is a noble nation to Africa when the man who gave you the blueprint that the white man know about, the man said, the freedom, the independence of Ghana will be meaningless. It is meaningless unless all Africa is free. Yeah, you here came and sat down with the same people that Kwame Nkrumah spoke those words against. Saying, and you saw your brothers and sisters to them. May the spirit of our forefather judge you. You will never get honor. Let's continue to that video.
That is, top U.S. officials are threatening to economically suffocate their closest allies. I mean, if this is how the U.S. treats its allies, imagine how barbaric the U.S. regime is with its adversaries. Of course, we don't really need to imagine that. We can see the invasions and coup attempts and sanctions and economic war and other, regime change operations and unconventional war that the U.S. wages against countries all around the world. But this is how they treat their own allies. Well, what about the European Union, another major U.S. ally? Well, top EU officials have also said that they will abide by the ICC arrest warrants. The EU's de facto foreign minister, Josep Borrell, has maintained that ICC warrants are legally binding and the EU cannot pick and choose. And by the way, the EU foreign policy chief, Borrell, also criticized this Israeli talking point, this propaganda, claiming that it's supposedly anti-Semitic to criticize Israel over the war crimes and crimes against humanity that it's been committing in Gaza. The EU foreign policy chief said, quote, "I have the right to criticize the decisions of the Israeli government, be it Mr. Netanyahu or someone else, without being accused of anti-Semitism. This is not acceptable. That's enough," end quote. So here, once again, we can see that the Western alliance on this issue has completely broken apart, and the U.S. is more and more isolated, even from its own allies. Inside the European Union, the governments of Italy, Ireland, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France have said that they will abide by the arrest warrants. If Netanyahu enters Italy, Ireland, Belgium, the Netherlands, or France, they will. arrest him. And by the way, I should point out that this is not the first time that we've seen this fragmentation going on in the Western Alliance. In fact, in September, there was an important vote in the UN General Assembly that demanded that Israel end its illegal occupation of Palestinian territory within 12 months. And the West was divided on this. In fact, several major European countries like France and Spain and Portugal and Ireland voted in support of this resolution. Most of the rest of Europe abstained, and just 2 countries in Europe joined the US in voting against the resolution, which was the Czech Republic and Hungary. But hey, Washington has one ally in the EU at least, which is the right-wing regime of Viktor Orban in Hungary. One of the only countries in Europe that has actually come out publicly and attacked the ICC and said that it will invite Netanyahu to visit is Hungary. And this shows that the US is the ally of the far right around the world. And this is not even with Donald Trump in power. I mean, when Trump comes in power, of course, he's going to continue supporting far right and extreme groups around the world. But Biden and Harris are in the White House, and the Democrats are in government right now, and they're in alliance with the far right, with people like Viktor Orban, saying that we hate the ICC, we support Israel, and we will attack the ICC. This is Washington's main ally right now in Europe. And if you look around the world, many countries in Latin America and Asia and Africa have said they will respect by this ICC ruling and they will arrest Netanyahu. But there is another exception, which is the far-right regime of Javier Milei in Argentina, who's a complete U.S. puppet. He wants to adopt the U.S. dollar. I mean, he just does everything that the U.S. wants. And Javier Milei has also attacked the ICC and expressed support for Netanyahu. Now, this is another very close ally of Donald Trump. He's part of the international far-right movement. And yet, once again, Biden and Harris and the Democrats are allied with the international far-right. They're allied with Orban in Hungary. They're allied with Milei in Argentina, the most extreme right-wing forces in Latin America. These are Washington's closest allies. Well, in Europe, the US and the international far right have one other ally, which is Germany, which is nearly always on the wrong side of history. And the German government has also come out publicly and said they will not respect the ICC arrest warrant because of their own history of the Third Reich and their own crimes against humanity that they carried out. So they learned nothing from the history of World War II and the Holocaust. They learned nothing, and today they're supporting those crimes again. So to me, that says everything about what's actually going on in the West. You have these governments that are willing to sponsor the worst possible crimes imaginable because it's politically convenient for them. But ironically, the situation has become so untenable, the crimes have become so egregious and overwhelming that the Western alliance, on this issue at least, is breaking apart. Now, of course, they still agree on many other things, like Russia and Ukraine and even on China, although on China they're increasingly divided. But on this issue of Israel's crimes against humanity, the Western alliance is fragmenting, and the United States is increasingly isolated. Its only allies are on the fringe far right around the world. And then the US talks about the rules-based international order while threatening to impose sanctions on The Hague, threatening to invade The Hague. To me, I think that's the perfect symbol to conclude with. That's the real face of the United States. But on this note, I'm going to conclude. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Please like and subscribe. Please share this. I will see you all.
Okay. So, now, to the believer of the West, I ask you this question now. Having watched, having seen, having heard, am I wrong to say African must unite against all imperialist nation? Am I wrong to say Africans must disengage with all imperialist nation? Let's continue. Now, the next video here is about the frustration of the West. Like I said, no matter how you twist it, there is going to be a war. I don't know whether you're going to call it World War III, World War IV, World War V, whatsoever you call it. There is going to be a war. And listen to this. See the frustration. It is not about humanity. What you're about to see in the video again is just another expression of frustration, expression of how, hey, this empire, it is time for it to go. Not me saying it. Watch and see.
Hi, I'm Steve Clemens, and I have a question. The West likes to dismiss the BRICS alliance as a political sideshow, but is it starting to crack the U.S.-led global order? Let's get to the bottom line. Next week, the group of countries known as the BRICS meet in Russia for its annual summit. After the Alliance of Emerging Economies expanded last year, these 9 countries now represent a bigger slice of global wealth than the G7, the main economic group of the United States and its junior partners. Population-wise, BRICS represents about 5 times more people around the world than these G7 nations, and it literally has 40 countries knocking on its door to join. But what power does it really have? And can the BRICS pose a challenge to America's grip on global dominance and the global economy, even if it wanted to? Today, we're talking with Richard Wolff, Professor Emeritus of Economics at the University of Massachusetts and author of more than a dozen books on the global economy, including Democracy at Work, A Cure for Capitalism. Richard, it's a real honor to have you on the show today. And I want to just ask you, like, point blank, BRICS, is it a real new thing that's going to challenge the American global order, or is it still an illusion?
Do you ever wonder how Nectar can offer such an incredible deal for their adjustable bundle? This bundle includes the Nectar mattress, cooling pillows, a mattress.
Well, the short answer to your question is it's a real thing, not an illusion. It's already challenged the order that was dominated by the United States, and it promises to continue to do so. It certainly is as we are speaking. It is only wishful thinking on the part of the major countries of what we used to call the collective West, or maybe should still call it. It's a self-delusion on the part of the West to minimize it, to brush it off. Really is a new world order that we are living through. And I believe many of the problems, many of the tensions, many of the hostilities we are in the midst of, as you and I are speaking, are derivative from, are shaped by the challenge posed by the BRICS.
So when I look at this group of nations, it's hard for me to understand, what do they represent? What are they for in terms of, I know that they may be against American dominance, but what are they collectively for?
They should not be thought of as some sort of monolith. They aren't. But they share that the highest priority they have is to emerge from the state of underdevelopment, less development, whatever language you find comfortable. These are countries that don't yet have the standard of living of the United States and who do not accept the notion that they can't or mustn't or shouldn't aspire to at least the same standard of living, if not, in fact, a higher standard. And they want the freedom and they want the opportunity to do so. And now the tension. They feel that the United States, with its major allies, the G7, that is Canada, Japan, Britain, France, Italy, and Germany, those 7 have held them back.
So you heard it. Those nations have held them back. Who them? Nation they call terror nation, terror continent, shithole continent, insignificant people, the African continent. So now again, I ask you, just from what you heard, just from what this man spoke here, do you think the imperialists want you to succeed, want you to rise, want you to have a standard of living for your people? Absolutely not. You heard what he said. And this is what they are against for each time you want to rise. To find yourself in a better place, in a better position for your people, for your nation, for the next generation. They do not want it. And that is why we respect the AES nations. That is why we respect Abraham Traore, Koita, Tiani. Those people, we respect them to the fullest. And we must do everything to protect them. And that is why we must bring up, we must talk about that every day. We must praise their citizens, the people in our region, because those people are part of the protection of those leaders.
First, as colonies, and secondly, as pariahs, as nations that are hemmed in by all kinds of restrictions. That is what's unacceptable. That is what they agree on, and that's where the rub with the G7 emerges.
Now, I want to ask you a complex question about the dollar. Why can't there be a challenge on that status tomorrow? Why can't rubles or the yuan or the currencies in Brazil, et cetera, be bundled together, which I understand is part of the objective of the BRICS? But why is there such primacy of the dollar?
Well, it's been the case, as you correctly point. It's been the case basically since the end of World War II. And if I may, let me suggest the importance of historically understanding what we're doing here, what situation that we are in. At the end of World War II, all of the countries that might have been competitors of the United States in terms of their economic power, their influence on the world, their importance in the flows of trade and money, all of the potential competitors, and we can list them: Britain, France, Germany, Japan, Russia, all were destroyed by the war. By contrast, the United States emerges after having a war, but the war helped the American economy. People have to remember, we were in a deep depression, the greatest depression capitalism has ever suffered. From 1929 to 1940-41, when World War II gets underway, this economy, the U.S., was depressed. In 1933, we had a 25% unemployment rate. 1 out of 4 workers had no work. And this affected every family in the country. So we came out of the Great Depression by means of World War II. We took half of the millions who were unemployed and put them in a uniform, and the other half of the unemployed went to work making the uniforms and the guns and the ships and the planes and all the rest. And so we came out of the war. Yes, we suffered loss of troops who fought. That was certainly significant, but not comparable to what happened in those.
So give me one, let's say 2 or 3 seconds of your time. So you understand war is a business, right? You saw the figure. This percent or this figure went into war for uniform whatsoever. This percent, this figure went into this. While other nations were fighting, right? And went down. And those nations, they were a great empire. While they were falling, United States as an empire pick up. Supporting war there. And then through that, they pick up, right? You heard what he said. It did not come from my mouth. They rise up from war as well, while under that Great Depression. So war is a business. That is why these imperialists support war. So now you understand why they veto it, right? You understand why they supported the Arab Spring to kill Gaddafi. Gaddafi and destroy Libya, right? When Gaddafi was sponsoring the AU and said, look, don't never take aid. Don't never take loan from Europe, from the World Bank, from US. to come into African organization. We African can take care of our own thing. They kill him. So you understand why it's a business. That is why these Western organizations, they supported Boko Haram. The Nigerian army told us, Medecins Sans Frontières support Boko Haram. In fact, they gave treatment, medical treatment to Boko Haram. Now you understand why these foreign businesses in DRC Congo, they don't have airport in the butchers in the forest to the man, but 24/7 plane land and pick up with the resources. Now you understand why it's a business. You hear what he's saying? Let's continue.
Other countries, but we had an intact economic system. Other than Pearl Harbor, no bomb fell on the United States for the rest of the war. And so there was no contest. We were king of the hill. We, the U.S., was dominant. If you're going to conduct trade, you better use the dollar because that was the only thing you could be.
Okay, so another thing. So now you see where their power took came from. Now, this is not to say we are against it. It's not about being against the U.S. We are discussing Africa and African people here too. So you understand again why they are fighting. Because if look, they have to continue with war. Because they in their mind, if there's a peace resolution with Palestine and Gaza, like they said, they will be next. They will come after them. Now, where they will be, where the U.S. will be fighting. So the issue here is they have to continue war somewhere so that Russia can get into it. That's how they went to Lebanon. They went to Iran. Because the issue, so they try with Ukraine. Try. Yeah, then stay. Russia just kept taking a coup, taking it easy. Russia kept asking for peace. People been going to Russia. Everywhere they went for peace about Ukraine, Russia was there. Russia got all his or her or their peace resolution agreement. You saw one of them when the African leader went there. Russia took it and gave it to them and said, this is a peace resolution agreement we had. But right after we finished with Zelensky, Boris Johnson at that time, he was the prime minister of England, went and told Zelensky no peace. Joe Biden told Zelensky no peace. Russia, Putin showed a copy to the African leaders. This is not about speaking for Russia or speaking against anybody, but it is the reality. So they try to get into war to provoke Russia about that Ukraine thing. No way. Russia kept taking it easy. So they tried with China too. With Taiwan. But China was able to handle that. And Taiwan see it like, no, at the end of the day, we are brothers and sisters. It will be bad for us. We're not going to sit down here. Somebody can use us against our own brother, against our own sister, and then we get into conflict for them. And then why now we fighting a war with China for them? Because the whole point here is to distract China, to distract Russia about Africa. That's the bottom line. Distract them. Make them to focus on war. Why they won't be doing business? Because if there's no war, what is it going to happen? The AES nation already gone. They're going to join the BRICS. And not only that, look at here, right now, trading going on is not going to go in US dollar. You think these people are not looking at what is happening? And that's what this guy is discussing here. Resources of other nations was being bought by the US dollar, making the US dollar powerful in the war. And it is part of the empire. It is part of the empire. The US empire is not just, well, different nationality come to the US to come see for greener pasture. No. The US dollar form part of the US empire. So when I say empire, it's not like people just coming to your country to come. No, these are all part of the empire. You have over 80-something military base in the world. It is part of the empire. So for people to tell you, no, take your base from here, we don't want your base, you're losing our empire. You get to you see what the US is fighting for? Let's continue. Let's continue.
Be sure was valuable alongside of gold. And so the dollar became the international symbol as well as the real transactional material to get your economy going again. So that by the end of the 20th century, it had become the norm, as you rightly say, for central banks around the country to hold dollars as well as gold as the reserve banking their currency. And the easiest way for Americans to grasp what the dollar as international currency means is to think very simply. Here's how it goes. A foreign country sends the United States the fruits of its labor, wine from France, electrical equipment from Japan, copper from Africa, whatever. And we send them little green pieces of paper, the dollar, the $10 bill, the $100 bill, which costs absolutely nothing to produce. It's a cheap piece of paper. They accept the paper and we get the produce. Wow. They agree. Normally, with other countries, they're not going to send you their produce, the products of their industry, unless you send an equivalent to them. It's an exchange. And in many cases, we still do that here in the United States with other countries. But if you have the dollar and the world wants it, you basically get something for nothing. The world holds the dollar, satisfied with that, because they need it for their currency support, and we get the fruit of other people's labor without having to give anything of our own in exchange. It's an extraordinary power, and guess what? Other countries would like to participate.
Let me ask you about the BRICS versus the G7. Isn't this, in a way, a bit of a charade, where the dominant behemoth power in the G7 is the United States, and the dominant behemoth power in the BRICS is China? And you hear about Brazil, you hear about Russia, you hear about India. But I mean, I'm just wondering whether these two gargantuans are sort of hiding the fact that we're in a, essentially a G2 world of China and the United States at odds, negotiating and masking what they're doing. How do you look at China versus the United States versus the G7 versus BRICS?
No, you're absolutely right. I don't know if I would use the word hiding, although I understand why you do that. It is a diplomatic politeness. You don't point out that you're the bigger of the partners in a deal. It's a polite, everybody knows, but you kind of don't say it. So let me first say you're right. The United States is the overwhelming dominant player among the G7, and China is the unquestioned equal dominant under the BRICS. All right, let's start with Russia, because it's a big, important player. The GDP of Russia last year in the neighborhood of, say, $2 trillion. These are rough measures, so it's the order of magnitude. That's all you have to keep in your mind. What is the comparison with the United States? The United States GDP this last year, about 24, 25 trillion. So you understand, Russia is 2 trillion, the United States, 24, 25 trillion. No contest. No one should ever imagine that either the Soviet Union in the past or Russia now is some kind of economic competitor of the United States. Never was, isn't now. Only the hype of the Cold War would make one think like that. And that's something you should correct if you've never had it explained to you. Now let's move to China. What's the GDP last year of China? Again, there are lots of debates about how you count it, but order of magnitude, 17, 18 trillion dollars. Way more important than Russia, but still not the size of the United States, although it's catching up. And most people believe at current rates of economic growth, China will surpass the United States by the end of this decade. And it has been catching up. Let's remember, 50 years ago, which in historical time is a moment, 50 years ago, China was among the poorest countries on earth. And now it is the only country in the world even close to the United States. And as I say, catching up. So China dominates. Russia, Brazil, India. India, by the way, is doing remarkably well. The problem is they have a poverty-stricken mass that is holding them back. And until they can do something about that, which...
Sorry, give me 1 minute of your time. So, like he said, 50 years ago, right? China was among the world's poorest nation 50 years ago. Now, imagine this. You know how China got over there? Through technology, all right? Through technology and putting her people to work. Imagine, China don't have the resources like Africa. But just in 50 years, China have reached that far or this far just through technology, all right? So put that in the perspective of Africans, the African continent. Apart from the African continent, African nations. Look at Haiti right here, one of the richest nations in the world. But you will never know unless it's tell you. That's why Haiti is going through that. Now, think about this. Africa, the richest continent in the world. All right? Not just that. The richest continent in the world when it comes to population. Working folks, again, one of them, if we want to take out China. All right? Then, the richest continent in the world when it comes to working folks. We have that. So, China don't have resources, but took 50 years to reach to the stage it is now, right? And then when you talk about a GDP, almost about to surpass the US, right? Do that with Africa. Less than. I'm not even talking about 50 years, but in 30 years, 25 years, 25 years. China don't have the resources, but just through technology, right? They are among the world's richest nation, almost about to pass the US. So do that to the African continent. Not even 25 years, we will surpass these people. We will surpass anybody in the world. Forget about that. We are the richest continent in the world. And not just that, we have the brain. We have the brain. You have Africans who did not even go to school, who have no educational knowledge, but they can build cars. On the African continent, they can build cars. Never sat in classroom how to build car, but they can build cars. And the cars is movable. The cars is drivable. Never. They are on the African continent. Never went to school. Never went to technology class or whatsoever you call it. But they build cars, and the cars are on the continent are moving. So give up 25 years. With no interruption. With no infiltration. Give up just 20 years of peace. Give up just 20 years of independence. Because what we have there, I don't call it independent. Give us just 20 years of liberation. Give us just 20 years of non-interference. Just 20 years. I'm talking about 50 years, 20 years. Where we control our thing. Just 20 years. You will see where Africa will be. You will see where Africa will be. You think they want it? They don't want it. That is why they continue to grow puppets to serve. Give it 20 years. Let's continue. Now you see why they want Africa. They want nobody. Now you see what you think it's about humanity. You think that they're talking oh this. It's about Africa. That is why they're angry with China. That is why the US, EU angry with China. They're telling China, don't you see the policy we have in Africa? And you came and want to take different policy? Don't you see when they say no, we put sanction on them? Don't you see we are not building a military? Don't you see we are not carrying technology there? Because they have the resources. Once we carry technology and they know how to do everything, we will not get it again. Don't you see? They will build their military, they will build their equipments, they will build their drone, they will build a nuclear arsenal. Don't you see that's why we don't support them? And you came from nowhere. You are not going with what we are doing. You think it's about Africa, Latin, they're doing to China and Russia? They are against these people from coming to that place. Now, I'm not saying Russia is not coming with their own interest. I'm not saying China, because all of them coming with their own interest. But the US, no! These people interests will empower Africa, unlike them. The US, no! These people interests will not have bourgeoisie, unlike them. These people, no! With those people in Africa, there will be no puppet, unlike them. Let's continue.
They still have a long way to go. They will not be equivalent to China either.
Right.
So China is, you correctly see, the new thing for the United States. And what do I mean? It's the first real economic competitor that the United States has had in a century. That's why it's so hard for Americans, including our leaders, to adjust, as the whole world must now, to this reality that the dominance of the United States is over, and there is no prospect that I can see for it to come back.
So let me ask you, Richard, about your view of the U.S. elections. Right now, we have a ragingly high stock market. We have very low unemployment. But if you go out and talk to Americans, there's a lot of anxiety out there when a lot of the surface data are pretty good. And I think Kamala Harris is running on that. And she's running against someone who's running on populist economics. So I'm interested in how you see these choices. We're going to have an election here in a couple of weeks. And do you think I framed it correctly?
Well, I would go further. Let me give you some other numbers. We have a greater degree of inequality in our economy than we have had for 50 years. The equality that came out of the Great Depression, the New Deal, that was remarkable about the United States. At the end of World War II, the United States was less unequal than all of our allies in Europe. Today, it's reversed. We're more unequal than all of our allies in Europe. What happened? We cut taxes on corporations. We exported huge quantities of the best paying jobs in manufacturing, which we don't have anymore. I could give you a long list of symptoms, of data, of realities that suggest this economy has got huge problems. And so here's the difficulty. There are people in our country who are enjoying the good things. And then there are people in our country who are excluded from the good things. Let's remember, for example, that the 10% richest Americans own about 90% of the stocks. So when you're saying the stock market is doing well, it is good news for those 10%, no question. But for the other 90%, they're watching the 10%, but they're not included in that happy experience. So they feel deprived, neglected, and there you can see where Trump's support can begin to develop. The idea we want to go back, MAGA, we want to go back, well, because the present isn't looking very good, and the prospects for their children in large parts of the United States are pretty grim if you're going to be honest about it. So we shouldn't be surprised if you don't distribute the good news equally across the society, you're going to get the results that we are now watching in terms of the closeness of this election.
Well, that discontent that you just described also seems to echo in what we're hearing from the BRICS, that there's sort of, all around the world, you sort of see this boiling discontent. I think it's hard to know sometimes when that infrastructure falls and is replaced, by those that have that discontent. But it's very interesting. I would be remiss, Richard, if I didn't ask you to share your thoughts on the Middle East as well. I mean, you've been essentially, in my view, a cold, hard realist on economics, beyond morality, beyond politics, look at the economics of things and be a realist telling that story. When you look at today, the crisis in the Middle East we see unfolding, Israel and this broadening crisis in the Middle East, and America kind of acquiescing to a lot of this. I'd love to get your thoughts and insights on where you see this going.
Yeah, I try to be realistic. I try to look at the data. I try to give a balanced view in all of these things. So let me try a little bit there. If you ask for the big picture, the way you opened our conversation by looking at the large geopolitical framework within which to think about these things, then I would have to say that much of what the United States has been doing, including its support for what Israel is doing, that these strike me as unfortunate, I'm choosing my words carefully, attempts by the G7, the West, whatever you want to call it, unfortunate efforts to hold on to a position that simply is no longer historically available to them. I understand it. Look, the American empire is shrinking. If you have a historical sense, you would have known that the special position I described a few moments ago that comes out of World War II with the United States sitting on top, that can't be sustained. It never has been in human history. No empire lasts forever. Every empire rises out of particular circumstances, evolves over time, and then passes away. The United States emerged as the dominant player in the world. I mean, look, we have 700 to 800 military bases around the world right now. No other country has anything remotely like that. That's a reflection of our empire. You can put whatever fancy words you want around it, but that's what this is. And it had no chance of surviving forever. It would eventually fade away like every other empire. And that's a very difficult experience for Americans, just as we can watch over the previous century, the poor British had to go through the loss of their empire, which is now absolutely gone from them. We are now, our empire peaked, and we are on the way down, and that is, and we try to hold on. We don't want the Russians to tell us they can take a piece of Ukraine back into Russia. And we don't want our ally, our friend in the Middle East, Israel, to be in any way held back from what it wants to do. These are our allies. That is our enemy. We want to hold it, but we can't. We can't. And this bitter lesson, look, the honesty, and I know this is difficult for Americans. We lost the war in Vietnam. It's now the Communist Party that runs that country. We lost the war in Afghanistan. It's the Taliban that runs that country. We lost the war in Iraq. I mean, I could go on, but the lesson should become plain to people. We can't do it. Israel is a country of a few million people, is not going to control.
Give me 1 minute again. So all the things he's saying, we lost the war, 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 and I can go and on like he said. That simply means the U.S. never win war. That simply means the U.S. don't go anywhere to win war. That simply means the U.S. go to create war. That simply means the U.S. go to destabilize. That simply means the U.S. go loot. That simply means the U.S. go get resources. They never win war. Why are you there? They go create war. They go destabilize. Africans, we must do away with all imperialist nations. Let's continue.
And run the Middle East. It can't do that with or without the United States. It can drive people crazy. It can produce unspeakable outcomes. And to take off my realist economist hat for a minute, these are war crimes. War crimes are defined when you kill civilians. A war is supposed to be a military against the military, and we went through a lot of trouble in the 20th century, in World Wars I and II, to come up with a war crimes definition and an international court that can identify and try to stop war crimes. That's when you kill large numbers of civilians. It doesn't matter what the excuse is, you can't.
Right.
So, yeah.
So again, like he's saying over there, like what Nkrumah said here, right? Let's see this here, and then we will also connect to what he just said. Let me see here. Where is the post? Okay. Now, this is what he said, and that is why exactly he's saying down there. Nkrumah said, I clearly understand what those two European men are talking about, but the hidden point is how to more effectively loot the African continent to buttress Western power. Now, you see what Nkrumah wrote here, right? That is what exactly this man is sitting there talking about. You heard what he said? Like the previous video we watched. What did the individual say? He said, if we allow the ICC to charge Israel, to find Israel guilty, all right, and then Israel going to pay for the crime, for the people, for the destruction, Israel going to pay millions or even billions of dollars. Now, even though he did not talk about the financial figures, what he said, if we allow ICC to charge Israel, then we're going to be next. Now, we all know if the ICC charge Asia, right? Asia got to pay for the crime. Asia got to sell for the time, and Asia got to develop the people to a nation. Asia got to pay for all the life loss, property loss. Now, like he said, we try to define. He said, in order to go wage war against another nation, it got to be military versus military. But what he did not say over there, which he's trying to dodge, he simply tried to say, unlike that, the U.S. have gone to other nations without fighting military. They went there, they killed civilians, destabilized the place, invade the place. So that is why the U.S. is supporting Israel. If not, they will be coming after us. He said it, and then you watch the first video, they said the same thing, and he's saying the same thing here, but just in different way. Because he's choosing his war carefully. Unlike the other guy, he said it clear. If we don't do this, we will be next. But he's choosing his war carefully. The U.S. went to other places. They did not go to fight the military there. They took war. And the U.S. has said it, that Obama said it. When he went to Libya, he said the greatest mistake he ever did was to go invade Libya, was to kill Gaddafi and destroy Libya. And they also said it. They went to Iraq, they did not find nuclear weapons. They themselves said it. So right there, the other for themselves guilty. So he know what he's saying here. Look, we have gone to places. That is why the U.S. try to defend crime against humanity, to defend this, but they can't find the definition. They can't.
The Hamas people on the October last year killed civilians. That's a war crime. That doesn't mean I don't understand why Palestinians would be resisting the dominance and the growth of Israel. I understand why they would. I think Israelis understand why they would.
Right.
And then the one killing of civilians over the last year by Israel, for me, indefensible as a war crime. As the International Court has said, it is a war crime and castigated Mr. Netanyahu. But for me, the bigger picture is that these are efforts to hold on. Israel is a kind of settler colonialism. It's when Europeans come and push out the local people, pretend they aren't there. That's that.
Listen to this. You so-called Christian, you so-called black Negro, who don't understand your history. You heard what he said? No, maybe let me take it back. Because some of you right now praying, oh, we pray for Asia. Oh. So you agree for the genocide that's been committed by Israel, and you there praying for Asia. Did you hear what he said? Maybe I'm gonna play it back. So you said, oh, so that means the white men in Israel, they are not a Jew. They are not the chosen people. They are not the people of the Bible. You understand? You understand? Maybe I might play it back. You heard what he said? The people in Israel, the white men there, they are the people who the Bible refers to as synagogues of Satan. The people who call themselves Jew, they are not Jew, but they are the synagogue of Satan. You heard what he said? There were people in that land before the white men went there and killed them, took them out and settled there. They are not the real people of that land. They are not the original people of that land. So are you still praying and fasting for Israel? You Negro P. And let me take it back so you can hear it one more time again.
Well, as a war crime, as the International Court has said, it is a war crime and castigated Mr. Netanyahu. But for me, the bigger picture is that these are efforts to hold on. Israel is a kind of settler colonialism. It's when Europeans come and push out the local people, pretend they aren't there. That's that notion, a people without land, the Jews, are going to a land.
You heard? The Jew, the people you can have met there and took them from there, Asia is a settler's colony. So if it is a settler's colony, that means people were there. And that's why he said a Jew. So then, you now become to ask yourself, who are those people? Who are the Jews that he's referring to that were on that land? Then now you go to the Bible and find out who the Jews are. You heard it. And the description, the definition, the identity of the Jew is in the Bible, is there. But you will sit there and worship the image of a white man. Now you are the Jew the white man is talking about. You were the one on that land. It was never called, that place was never called Middle East. It was Africa. It was Africa. That whole area was Africa. It was part of the Akobu land. The Akobu land. And the original name for Africa too is Eden. It was part of Eden. But the white man got to say it before we believe it. When we say it, the black man say you don't believe it. Because you believe no truth comes from the black man's mouth. And that's how been because of indoctrination of the colonialist. Let's continue.
And without people. Yeah, it is a lovely story. It's a lovely parallel, but it isn't true. There were people there. We know the story. We're Americans. Europeans came here, got rid of the local population, and the few of them that are left are stuck in reserves. Where Israel is going is in that direction. But the problem is that was centuries ago where you could do that. You can't do that now. You cannot, and the world is isolating Israel, and what I see is a very, very unhappy end for Israel in making this sad effort to hold on when the only possibility is working out a live and let live arrangement with your neighbors.
So much to think about. I really want to thank you, renowned economist and author Richard Wolff. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and my appreciation for having these conversations. United States, in which I was born and lived all my life, needs it now more than ever.
So what's the bottom line? People just don't like upheaval and change. After World War II, America and its allies built a system that still exists today. Folks not only go along with the system, but they try to reinforce it. They try to rationalize it to an almost absurd degree, even when they're hurt by it. Until one day, all of a sudden, the whole structure collapses, and from it, a new paradigm emerges. It is true that China is challenging America's primacy. It is true that Africa is rising. It is true that South Asia and Latin America represent the biggest growth of the middle class worldwide. But the American-led order is going to continue to lead, and its supporters are going to twist themselves into pretzels trying to justify it. Until one day when it doesn't. The BRICS.
All right. It is true that Africa is rising. Now you understand we're going to end with that. So you see where the issue is coming from with the West, with the US, with Europe. They do not want to see the uprising of Africa. That is today's story. That is today's message and today's teaching. Do you agree with me that Africa must unite against all imperialist nations? Do you agree with me that Africa should disengage with all imperialist nations? It is what it is. We must unite. It is time. The writing is on the wall. They know it. They know it. We are the original people. They know it. But they play on our ignorance. They play on our disunity. They play on a fight that we believe in them more than ourselves. Those are the things they play on. They play on a fight that we do not trust ourselves. They play on a fight that we think that without them we can't move. Without them we can't function. Without them the war will not move. Our war will not move. But you heard what he said. We know the history. That he said, I'm quoting from him. You heard what he said. We know the history. Israel is a settlers colony. There were people that lived on the land. European came there. We killed the people, drove away the people, and we settled there. And he said, we know the story. The stories are there, and we know it. You heard what he said. So you so-called Christian, now begin to ask yourself, who were those people that was there? Because you read the Bible and you think those people are the original people. Those people, they were on our land. First of all, it was never called the Middle East. But they wrote their book. In order for them to be right, they have to split it and put Middle East. But it was never Middle East. That area was Africa. It was part of the Aquabil land. It was part of the Galilee, the Eden. That's another name for Africa, Eden. When they split the canal or the sea, the Red Sea, even Spain, when they cut all those things apart, they had to do it to fit their narrative. They cut it apart and stop. But that's part of Africa there. You lived there. You were there. It is in the Bible. It is there, the same book you read. It is your identity. It is your history. It's not in the Bible. That's your history. It's there. And now he's telling you, they never lived there. They were not the one that lived there. They were original people that lived there. They came from Europe, drove out with the people, fought the people, killed the people, and they settled there. And you heard it. And he said, we know the history. We came and met people there. You heard it. But he don't want to go deep. He don't want to say it is time for us. It is our judgment. Because that's what all these things mean. It is their judgment. It is time for them. They are not a real Jew. They are the fake Jew. They are the Satan of synagogue or synagogues of Satan. They are the devil that the Bible describes. Where they sold to their enemy, because the Bible says the real Jew will be sold to their enemy, right? They'll go to unknown land, right? And they shall see their land no more. Where they, how can they be the real Jew when they see the Bible you read? You Christian. When the Bible says the Israelites will be sold to their enemy and they will see their land no more. But those people in the land, and they were never sold. They never went to slavery with ships. Nothing like that. So why can't you question yourself, you so-called Christian, to say, but the Bible says, what I believe in, the real Jew will go to slavery, will shipped, they will be sold to their enemy, and they shall see their land no more, and there they shall live in test. Anything they want, they shall go to their enemy. They want clothes, they will go to their enemy. They want food, they will go to their enemy. They want water, they will go to their enemy. They will live in the imperial area, the poverty area. I mean, they shall have no military might. But how can Israel have military might? All these things you read it and you can't ask yourself, you can't say, but wait a minute, something wrong somewhere here. You can't go do further research. And you there praying for Israel. You there praying for them. You fasting for them. You poor sheep. Anyway. This is WCC. This is the Revolutionary Persuasion Educational Lecture Series. This is Frank Malba. I am your host. Thank you for tuning in. Please share, like, subscribe. You can put your comment after the recording, and, after the live, you can put your comment and see where we were wrong, and let's say where we went wrong and where we can improve. And so after the live, go back to the recording, put your comment, what you think, where you think we can improve, because we're still learning. All right. But other than that, thank you for tuning in. That's what we have today. I will see you all Saturday and also Sunday. Peace.